Italy Police Department and the Department of Public Safety responded to an active shooter at the Italy High School. A 15-year-old student was transported by care flight to Parkland Hospital. A 16-year-old male suspect was taken into custody by Department of Public Safety and the Italy Police Department.
A 15-year-old's condition is unknown after she was shot at a high school in the town of Italy, Texas. While a 16-year-old boy has been detained in connection with the shooting, the names of both teens are being withheld. Details are limited, though 2 schools were placed under lockdown following the shooting.
A prayer vigil was held this evening in Italy in Ellis County, where this morning a student walked into the school cafeteria and opened fire on a teenage girl. He shot at another student but missed. News 10's John Carroll is covering the story. He has more from Italy.
Well, Gordon, it was before school, about 15 minutes before the first bell, when students were in the cafeteria and a young man walks up to a teenage girl, 15 years old, a freshman, and opens fire, shooting her twice. Others say in this town it could have been much worse.
She got shot and fell, and then blood. I saw a little bit of blood.
This morning's tragedy hits the heart of this community.
15-year-old Edgar Gonzalez was eating breakfast in the Italy High School cafeteria this morning, shortly before 8, when things suddenly went wrong.
And all of a sudden, I see this kid coming in and pulling out the gun and just shooting the little girl. And yeah, it was horrible.
The 15-year-old girl collapsed as the shooter runs from the building. In an afternoon press conference, Ellis County Sheriff Chuck Edge confirmed what Gonzalez told us.
The male student engaged the victim in the cafeteria and fired several shots from a semi-automatic .380 handgun. That handgun was recovered at the scene.
The mother of another student showed us the text that he sent his parents moments after the shooting. It said, "I was right in front of it when it happened."
But he said that he saw the girl getting shot on the neck and on the chest. He was kind of, he was nervous. I guess he was in shock.
The shooter, a 16-year-old student from the school, was apprehended by police just outside the building. But authorities are tight-lipped about him or the girl's condition.
This is still obviously an extremely fluid, ongoing investigation, and we're not going to be releasing any of the details of the actual investigation at this time.
Almost immediately, media helicopters filled the air, and officers from 10 different agencies converged on the scene. The high school and nearby elementary school were put on lockdown.
Gunman opened fire this morning at Marshall County High School, and at least one person is dead. Several others have been hurt. Reports from the scene indicate the person who died is a student and that as many as 7 people have been injured. Sky 5 is also there, and this is some of the video they're sending back to us right now. Minutes ago, we saw a dozen school buses likely taking uninjured students who were at school to another location. Kentucky's governor says he is in shock and that it's just unbelievable this would happen in such a small, close-knit community. Governor Matt Bevin is asking residents to come alongside each other in support and prayer. Again, at least one dead at this school shooting in Benton, Kentucky.
At this time, there are 19 individuals who are being treated or have been treated for injuries. 14 of those are gunshot wounds. 5 of those are non-gunshot wound-related injuries. Of the 14 who have received gunshot wounds, 2 have passed away. 1 was a decedent at the scene. That student was a 15-year-old female. A second student also 15 years old, a male, passed away at the hospital. Students were taken to multiple hospitals, local and regional hospitals. 6 of them were flown to the nearest level 1 trauma center. One of the decedents, the male, passed away at that center. There are 5 other students, as best we know, at that center. 5 we know for fact. We're trying to determine that every one of those that has been shot was a student. It is our belief that they are.
Our Sarah McCarthy is live now at Vanderbilt Medical Center here in Nashville, where some of the victims were airlifted earlier this morning. Sarah, what can you tell us?
Well, Vicki, we have seen 3 victims land here at Vanderbilt, and Lifelight tells us that a 4th is actually on the way. We have seen these helicopters really land in waves here this morning. The first victim landed here at 9:45 on the helipad that you see just above me there. The second landed about 20 minutes later, and a third arrived just minutes after that. I want to take a look at some video and show you what we've seen. We're told as those helicopters landed, trauma teams were on standby, waiting to determine exactly how badly these victims are hurt. And that is information we are still working to get. Right now, we don't know the names, ages, or gender of any of the victims, but we are working very closely with Vanderbilt to get as many details as possible.
Conflict highlights just how many foreign actors are involved in what some have referred to as a Syrian civil war. At least 9 people, including 6 civilians, were killed as a result of Turkish airstrikes conducted on Saturday. According to Turkey's prime minister, the assault dubbed Operation Olive Branch consists of Turkish troops, warplanes, artillery, and tanks offering support to Syrian rebels for hire known as the Free Syrian Army. The FSA was previously backed by the United States with the goal of ousting the Assad government, but now find themselves employed by Turkey to fight another U.S.-backed militia, the Syrian Democratic Forces, or SDF. Turkish forces reportedly captured several villages in the Syrian region of Afrin over the weekend. Their goal is to oust Kurdish forces known as the YPG, or People's Protection Units, because it's seen as an extension of the Kurdistan Workers' Party, or PKK, which Turkey considers to be a terrorist organization. While President Donald Trump ended U.S. support for so-called moderate rebels early on in his presidency, including the Free Syrian Army, he continues U.S. support for the Kurds. That's despite November reports, according to Turkey's foreign minister, that Trump promised Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan he was ending that policy. Russia's foreign ministry blamed Trump's support for the Kurds for the current situation, saying, quote, uncontrolled deliveries of modern weapons, including reportedly the deliveries of the man-portable air defense systems by the Pentagon to pro-U.S. forces in northern Syria, have contributed to the rapid escalation of tensions in the region and resulted in the launch of a special operation by the Turkish troops. Speaking Monday, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov charged the United States with inflaming separatist aspirations among Syria's Kurds, stating Washington has actively encouraged and continues to encourage separatist sentiments among Kurds, which he said, quote, is either a lack of understanding of the situation or an absolutely conscious provocation. He also accused Washington of discouraging the Kurds from engaging in dialogue with the Syrian government. Turkey's actions come just several days after Secretary of State Rex Tillerson said the U.S. will maintain an open-ended presence in Syria. His comments followed an announcement from the Pentagon that it was creating a 30,000-strong militia described as a border force in Syria. Tillerson later scrambled to walk back that announcement, saying the policy had been, quote, misportrayed after Erdogan promised to strangle such a border force, quote, before it's even born.
The U.S. is in the process of creating a terror army on our border. What we have to do is nip this terror army in the bud. America, do not encroach on our borders. Do not provoke us, or we will run out of patience.
It appears now Tillerson's remarks were not enough to keep Ankara from going to war.
A standing ovation for U.S. Vice President Mike Pence, as he told Israel's parliament that the U.S. embassy would move to Jerusalem in 2019.
In the weeks ahead, our administration will advance its plan to open the United States Embassy in Jerusalem. And that United States Embassy will open before the end of next year.
Pence is the highest-ranking U.S. official to visit the region since Donald Trump acknowledged Jerusalem as the Israeli capital and announced the embassy move last month. But not everyone was happy to see him. A handful of Israeli Arab lawmakers loudly protested at the start of Pence's address. The signs they are waving say, Jerusalem, capital of Palestine, and the split not only between the Palestinians and the Israelis, but also between the European Union and the US. On Monday, the EU assured Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas that it supports his ambition to have East Jerusalem as the capital of a future Palestinian state. All that means that Jerusalem remains at the centre of an intractable dispute.
Although so close together, the Israelis and Palestinians could not be further apart politically at the moment. The Trump decision and the Pence visit come against a background of stalled peace negotiations. Nothing substantive has happened on that front for years here.
The Trump administration says it remains committed to those peace negotiations, but a US role in such talks is now being shunned by Palestinians. On Monday, Abbas said he would only accept a broad, internationally backed panel to broker any peace talks with Israel.
Palestinian leader Mahmoud Abbas is asking the European Union to formally recognize the state of Palestine. Abbas made the request during a press briefing with the EU's top diplomat Federica Mogherini. We pay all due respect to the positions of the European Union. We truly consider the EU as a true partner and friend. Therefore, we call on its member states to swiftly recognize the state of Palestine, and we confirm that there is no contradiction between recognition and a resumption of negotiations. Abbas wants Brussels to recognize the state of Palestine along 1967 borders, with East Jerusalem as its capital.
Japan this morning, a volcano eruption set off an avalanche at a ski resort. At least 16 people were injured. Some were briefly buried by that avalanche. Others got hit by volcanic rock. Everyone is expected to survive. 80 skiers had to also be rescued from a gondola station.
This is the alarm that woke residents in Alaska in the middle of the night.
Attention! A tsunami warning has been issued for this area.
A tsunami warning triggered by a 7.9 earthquake off the coast of Alaska.
Oh my gosh, it's an earthquake.
A tsunami watch generated up and down much of the west coast from British Columbia all the way to San Francisco Bay.
This is not a drill. This is an actual tsunami warning. Everybody get at least 100 feet above sea level.
The tsunami was first expected to take aim at Kodiak, Alaska. Residents heeding the evacuation orders rushing to higher ground.
Don't be scared, hun. There's nothing to be scared of.
The town's 6,000 residents gathered together at the local high school for shelter. The school's principal telling us spirits are high and everyone is doing well, but schools here will be canceled for the rest of the day. From Washington to Southern California, residents woke up to messages like this on their phone. The warning later downgraded to an advisory. The quake took place in shallow water about 175 miles off the coast. According to NOAA, tsunami waves can travel as fast as 500 miles an hour in deep water. In shallow water, the waves slow in height and size as they build.
Breaking news here in Newsnight on CNN. Philippines' Mayon volcano erupting anew. We're going to show you live pictures right now. That is a lava fountain. I'm sorry, this is a little bit earlier, taken a few minutes ago. A lava fountain coming out of the crater of the volcano. This is exactly what VVolcs scientists and geologists have been warning about, that yesterday's eruption and today's eruption, this is not going to be the last of it, and this is what we're seeing now. Early this morning, this was the same scene, and these are live pictures right now. Mayon volcano, lava fountains coming out of the volcano. Of course, we all know the most violent eruption of Mayon was back in 1814, and that is what killed more than 1,000 people, and it also buried part of the church in Cagsawa, and that is why there are the Cagsawa ruins. But right now, this is what we're seeing, live pictures from Albay, Legazpi City in Albay, Mayon volcano, which was known throughout the decades, centuries, as the volcano with a perfect cone and a very imperfect cone now, a lava fountain coming out of it at this very moment.